all of my worst nightmares after 6 years come true. Everybody's in there and they're looking at me like, what are we doing? It was madness.
Hey guys, welcome back to the VHS Revolution Show, the show where we talk all about movies that we grew up watching, whether it was on VHS or DVD in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. My guest today is somebody I've known for a long time, Greg Harrison. His debut feature, Groove, is 25 years old this year. I had a chance to revisit it and talk to Greg all about the making of the film, everything that went into it, the budget. He was really forthcoming with great memories and stories about how the film came together. And Greg very generously shared a lot of behind-the-scenes photos and videos with me, which I've included here in this episode. We actually talked for so long that I had to split the episode into two parts. So this part is about Groove. The second part is all about Greg's career post-Groove. Both great, fascinating conversations. And if you're an independent filmmaker or you want to make your first film, watch this episode. Greg is really insightful and shares a lot of things about being a first-time filmmaker, making a first film, all the obstacles and things they had to deal with. It's a lot. And the film has endured 25 years later. It's really quite an amazing accomplishment. So this is my conversation with Greg Harrison about Groove. Well, I am so pumped because Greg Harrison is here. Greg and I have known each other for a long time, and we'll get into that in a bit. But the reason that Greg is here is because it's the 25th anniversary of your writing, directing debut, Groove.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
It's wild, man. I cannot believe it's been 25 years. I feel old.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. Yeah. It's we were gonna celebrate the 20th anniversary, but then COVID happened. We had many events lined up with DJs, and so it's nice to come back around 5 years later. And, have some screenings. So.
Well, last year I shared a reel on Instagram, on my Instagram account, VHS Revolution, and the reel was from the opening credits of Go. Because I love the opening credits because it does that Columbia logo and then transitions into the song. And I captioned the video with "Remember the rave movie Go," right? And then I got all these comments from people saying like, "That's not the real rave movie. The real rave movie is Groove."
Yes.
Right. So then they were like, "What about Groove?" Right? And I got tons and tons of comments about Groove, and I was like, "Oh wow, it's still going. It's still going. People really love this movie 25 years on."
Yeah, it's wild. In fact, there was a really nice piece written on Letterboxd for the 25th anniversary. And it was this young woman who's probably in her 20s, maybe late 20s. And she completely connected with the movie. That's what I've noticed over the years is new generations of people that are into electronic music or what kind of the San Francisco culture was at the time. And I think a real nostalgia for in the 90s, they keep finding the movie. And this is not even just in the US. Like I get emails from people. I got a broken English email from someone in France saying, we are throwing a party in the structure of Groove. To enter, you have to have watched the movie.
Wow.
And, like all this stuff. And like, do you have any advice and all this stuff, like posters and stuff. But like that, I've mused on why that is the case. It seems to really strike a chord over the years. It's not just the old schoolers. It still comes around for all these other generations.
Well, there's really no other movie like it that I know of. I mean, I know there's other movies. There's Go and there's Human Traffic that are kind of they have to do with raves. But this, to me, feels like the only movie that's really set at a rave. It takes place over the course of one night.
Yes,
it's about
that's its only subject, really.
Right.
I mean, that was the whole point, was to really tell the story of a rave, not necessarily go too in depth on any one story. It's really about San Francisco raving in the late 90s. That is its sole subject. Yes.
So then let me ask you this. I want to ask you a little bit about your life before Groove or leading up to Groove.
Yes.
Were you part of the San Francisco rave scene?
Yes, I was. We have to dial the clock back to very early internet days. I had a CompuServe email, which was just a string of numbers at CompuServe.com. And and I had like I think I had those early Mac laptops, those kind of gray plastic laptops, and they were all black and white, like LED screen. Anyway, I would log on to my dial-up, and I started listening to some electronic music at the time. This was like 93, 92 when I first moved to LA. And then I had just poked around on CompuServe and stuff, and I'd found a list called SF Rave. So it was an email list. And I just found that fascinating. I started looking into raves. A friend of mine, Steve Van Wormer, who ended up being in the movie, he and his then girlfriend, now wife at the time, Marina, had gone to some raves. So my first rave was actually in in LA, and it was called Groove Family. And so all of that was like early 90s, I would say 92, 93. I got onto SF Raves 93, 94. And that was fascinating because I was seeing all these reports from the Mecca, San Francisco, all in text. And it was all underground parties. It was all kind of break-ins, undergrounds that they would describe, the planning of the party, the lineup, and then all the afterglow and everyone reporting what happened at the party. And it was just this fascinating read to me. I would download all the emails and read them. And I think the turning point really was on this email list, there was a posting saying, there's a room for rent at the Blue Cube. The Blue Cube was the location of one of the epic parties that was chronicled in this email list. And I'm like, I'm going to live at the Blue Cube. That's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go live at the Blue Cube. And this is before you could go on Airbnb and look at the place and all that. So I basically emailed the guy who was on the SF Raves list and said, I will take that room. I moved up there. I lived, and one of my roommate was like a experimental ambient music guy who also worked in tech. So that was the way I got in. And then I just helped throw small parties. I went to small parties. I was part of the Friends and Family Collective, which a lot of Groove is based on. And that's really, I think, I was editing at the time, but I really was in my 20s just like editing to save up money and then go and have adventures and live simply,
Right.
So I'd edit it for 3 months and take 5 months off or whatever. And
when you say editing, what exactly do you mean?
Yeah, well, I started, that's kind of how we connected, right?
Right.
We came up through the trailer and TV spot editing world for entertainment marketing. That's how I got my start. That was the way I made a living, was editing spots and trailers. And then I was an assistant editor on feature films right when Avid was happening. So that was the way I made my living. And my whole plan was work as little as possible and then live as cheaply as possible. That I sustained for pretty much all of my 20s.
Wow.
That was my lifestyle.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But it gave me a lot of time to get involved in things like the rave scene in San Francisco.
Right. So then when did the idea to write a script come about?
Yeah. Well, I went to school, studied film and television. I was heavily involved in student productions, wrote, produced, directed, edited, created things with all my filmmaker friends in Michigan. So I always aspired to make films. Editing was a way in to learn and be in the industry. I worked freelance and got to see a lot of features get made. But I always aspired, so I always was trying to write just on my own. And so I just started taking notebooks to the raves and just kind of ethnographically like noting all these unique things that were funny or interesting about the scene in San Francisco. And I just compiled a notebook over years, really. Yeah, that was kind of the beginning of it. And then
were you able to write those notes while you were high on ecstasy?
Well, I joined. I wouldn't say I was a heavy ecstasy user. I definitely took it, but I wasn't like always doing it. I definitely felt like more of an observer.
Yeah.
When I first got into it, it was a brand new scene. I was meeting new people. It was a great time to be in your 20s in the city. I mean, you could afford to live there. I had the Blue Cube, I think, was $350 a month, and I was living in Noe Valley. I mean, that's just outrageous, right?
Wow. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great fun time. It was a bunch of artists and musicians and just young people who didn't have clear jobs.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It was like a really fun time.
Like you do in your 20s. You're like, You just want to have money so you can go out and have fun.
Yes, that was basically the scene. But anyway, yeah, so those notes, I was just observing a lot, and I found it fascinating, and I was drawn to this particular kind of post-hippie idealism that is known in the Bay Area. Like the Bay Area is kind of the epicenter of some of that counterculture in our history. And I felt the raves were just another expression of that idealism and kind of community. And I think at the time too, I was looking for my people too. And so there was just a really fun creative energy around that. So yeah, tons of documenting just details. And then I actually was just looking at some early notes. I have like a little bound book of early notes from that time. And I think I just dawned on me, write what you know, that old adage. And I'm like, this seems very interesting and unique. I'm excited about it. I've got all these notes. So that's really how it was. As I started probably writing in earnest in 95, early 96, the script, I'd say.
And then you would just kind of work on it at night as you were working during the day, or
in the day, because I didn't have a job, right? It's like so you work on it anytime.
Right.
Usually late in the day, because I would be up late and then sleep in. But
sure.
But I would take my PowerBook 140 and walk down to a local cafe and write. I did have a writing process that I would just try to stick to every day. But I didn't know how to write a script. It was really the first feature script I ever completed.
Yeah, right. Like, how did you? This is the early '90s. You can't just go on YouTube and research how to write a screenplay. So,
I read books. Yeah. I read books. I went to a few classes in the Bay Area, but most of it was just I'd read a lot of scripts. I downloaded a lot of scripts, but it was really, I think, the theme, both in my career and the story of this movie, is really the story of DIY. Really, I mean. Making an independent film is totally DIY. The way the rave scene functions, it could not be more DIY, right? Like I think that spirit permeated the whole project from beginning to end. And for whatever charm and lasting resonance it has, I think it's born out of that.
So then when did you feel like you were happy with the script and what was the next step?
Yeah. Well, I was happy with it way before I ever could make it. I was like, I want to make it now. It's like 96 or whatever. And then 97 rolls around and I couldn't make it. But I just kept revising and taking notes and maybe getting better, making it better, talking to people who might want to be involved. I did have a stint where I tried to raise money through typical processes, like going back to LA and, a friend's dad knew somebody at like a financing company, that kind of stuff. Just like I was nobody with nothing, and you just find out what the connections are. And all of it was just like thanks but no thanks. Like it's wild because when you look back on it, it was such the right place at the right time. The kind of movie it was.
Yes.
So it's not only what we made, but the time we made it was like really the right time. But people did not see that when I was showing it to them. I got a lot of feedback about like, well, what really happens in this thing? It's not really a story. What is this movie? Right. Don't you think someone should put a gun to the rave? Like I have that so much, man. They're we gotta get something. We gotta get some drama in here. Like maybe someone brings a gun. Like that came up multiple times. My favorite thing that I have in my scrapbook is I got to Columbia TriStar, and it was a very lovely short form letter that says, "Thank you for your submission of Groove. This is not something we're interested in at this time. Thank you." And guess who distributed our DVD after we were purchased at Sundance?
Right, it was Sony, right?
TriStar.
Yeah,
that made me very happy.
Yeah. That's so wild. That's so funny. Yeah, it's like it's not something until they see it.
Yes.
And then they're like, okay, now we're interested.
Yes, totally.
Right.
Again,
After
go back
you've
to
gone
the
through
DIY thing. Like the whole system for independent films, even then when it was easier, was built on saying no. I think that's probably, it's safer to say no than yes. That's kind of the usual story. But yeah, it made me. I feel like just, at that time, it just made me go, okay, well, what else do I have to do? I'm going to make this movie. So that takes us to 97, 98. And I was like, okay, well, I got to raise the money. How do you raise money? Okay, well, you need a company. How do you make a company? There was a local film arts foundation in San Francisco, which is a great resource for independent filmmakers. That was like a lifeline for community and information and talks, and people would come. Anyway, there was a local lawyer who said, here's how you make an LLC to raise money for a film. And I said, great. I went back to editing, made 5K, paid him 5K, and formed an LLC. Yeah. And then I had to write a business plan. So I learned how to write a business plan, and then came really needing a producer. And that's where Danielle Renfrew-Behrens comes in. She was a Bay Area filmmaker, documentarian. And we met through a mutual friend, Andrea Gard, who ended up being the sound designer on Groove. Oh. And she was in the doc world, and she had made some short docs, social issue docs. So she really wasn't a fiction filmmaker, wasn't connected to the rave scene at all. We met at a local cafe and hit it off, and I kind of told her what I was trying to do. And I think what she saw in the movie was it aspired to documentary detail.
Yes.
That's what drew her in, was like, oh, this is a scene, and you need to render it in this fine detail. You need to engage the scene that you're making the movie about so it's authentic. So all those things seem to map onto her instincts and experience as a doc filmmaker.
Yeah, it's not just a movie with the rave as the backdrop.
Right.
It really is about the details of putting on and being at a rave.
Yes. And that's the thing. I think that's a lot of what people in the film biz I was trying to raise money from didn't quite get. Or if they got it, they're like, why would anybody want to see that?
Right.
Like it was one of those two responses. But I was just like, if I could just capture this feeling, and it all is in these details, the way people behave, the way they dress, the sort of ethos of throwing the rave, the sort of like community, the cheesier parts, the kind of darker parts, just all this stuff. It was just this was a snapshot in time, and that's what I wanted to express. So anyway, she was on board for that. And she was also in her 20s, and she's like, yeah, let's have an adventure and try to make a movie. She had never raised money like this either. So it was just us. We kind of became us against the world to like, well, what's the next thing we got to do?
And so then you spent the next period of time raising the money. And
yeah, it took about 2.5 years to raise money. So we budgeted it at like $750,000. And then we raised money for 6 months, and we got $25,000. It's like that scene in Rushmore where he's like, how much for the aquarium? $40,000. I'll give you 300. Okay. I had to paraphrase, but I love that scene.
Right.
It's totally the spirit of how we made this movie. It was like, we're going to make $1 million movie. How much do we have? 30,000. Okay.
Wow.
That's how it went. So it was just like, okay.
Was that frustrating? Was that demoralizing?
Oh, yeah. It was brutal. It's a very, very hard process. I don't, looking back on it, if I knew how hard it was, I mean, this is true of anybody making anything. If you knew how hard it was, you would never do it. It was that level of thing, and self-doubt and all this stuff. But when you're, I guess, I keep going back to that, empowered by naivete. That's a lot of what I tell young people trying to make things, is like, use your idealism, use the energy of youth and the folly of youth.
Absolutely.
And drive it. That's what we did. We just said, fuck it. Let's keep going.
Yeah. How much did you end up with?
So $750, we raised 30. We said, could we make it for 500? We got up to maybe 90,000. Then we said, all right, we can make it for I think our budget was at 400, and we raised 120. And so we just said, you know what? Whatever money's in the bank, we're going to start shooting in September. That's what we just said. We said, whatever the movie's going to be, for whatever money we have in the bank, that's what we're going to do. Because by that point, we had cast it. We had found the DP. We had, we just kept doing everything else in parallel to the money. And it's the chicken or egg thing, people, you got to get the train moving so people hop on it, but people won't hop on it until the train's moving. So it was just sort of that thing that we kept doing. It was like, we release our own press release on our website, like DP signed, Hamish Linklater joins the cast. We saw him in a Shakespeare play in LA, and Lola Glaudini, who plays Layla in the film, said, you got to come see this guy. He's incredible. And he was a Shakespearean trained actor. We saw him in a play at the Taper and went backstage, and I gave him the script for Groove, and he was like, "This is awesome. I'll do it." The big thing was casting. We did do a big casting call in San Francisco, and that felt essential. Really,
Yes.
we wanted to cast the people that were from the Bay Area because and so many of them are non-actors in the film. But it just felt like, okay, the DJs, the dancers, and some of the speaking parts, which should come from the scene or from at least the Bay Area. So that we worked with a friend whose wife, Maria Ray, still old time friends of ours, started casting.com. So this was like the first casting company online. Everything was .com, of course, in the Bay Area. Right.
Wow.
So that was kind of a little press hook for us too, is that, we employed casting.com to do it. And we got a great turnout. I mean, I still have I have a lot of those videos of the original auditions.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
Came out of the woodwork to audition for the Rave movie. It was so fun. We just put posters around around the town, and we got hundreds and hundreds of people that showed up. And really, I would say 80% of the cast came out of that process.
Wow.
I'd say.
That's great.
Yeah.
Was there a role that was difficult to cast?
Well, I knew once Hamish said yes to David, I thought, my God, we got something really special here. Because David and Layla, I always saw them as sort of the spine. Even though I wasn't that interested in telling too deep of a story about any one person, they had great chemistry and they were legit actors. Like they were really bringing it in terms of craft. And so I felt really strong once we had Hamish and Lola. I thought, okay, this is going to be great for the core of that. The one thing that we did do that you might find interesting is the first person we cast was a name, what we thought was kind of a name for the promoter, because the promoter is in every day of the schedule. He's the ringleader from the first scene to the last scene. And we thought, okay, that's a place we'll cast a name and it'll help us raise money. So we went to Sundance in '99 with a postcard that said, Groove, we're making this movie. And went to movies and talked to actors after their screenings. And there was an actor who had made some name for himself in TV at the time, who was in some independent films there. And we got him attached as Ernie, who's the promoter. But there were just warning signs, the way he gave notes on the script and the way he sort of insinuated himself into the creative process. We were like, yeah, but he's helping us raise money. And then after a while, we're like, is he helping us raise money? We didn't really know. But we were just these young filmmakers who were like, hey, we got someone who's on TV, right? So cut to day one of shooting, and we're shooting a scene with him. And all of my worst nightmares after 6 years come true. He will not take direction. He is making up stuff. He is ignoring me. And when I took him aside and said, hey, I hope we can find a way to really work together here. And he's like, one step at a time, man. And I was like, what the fuck is happening right now?
We have 23 days. We don't have one step at a time.
The schedule. And I'm shooting the master of the first shot of my film. And this is coming up. And I know if I turn the camera around for coverage, literally, the first AD is like, coverage, turn. And I just, in my gut, I said, if I come around on coverage on this guy, I'm committing to him in the film. And so I cleared the set. I went up to the office and I said, Danielle, we need to fire our lead actor.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was just one of those things where the 6+ years of crawling up this hill was about to, in my gut, I said, it's not going to be the movie that I struggled to make. It was madness. And I was like, Danielle, this is insane, but my gut is saying we got to fucking get rid of him right now. If we don't get him right now, we're fucked.
Wow. And
the associate producers, everybody's in there and they're looking at me like, what are we doing? What the hell are we doing?
Right.
So we went down and I said, sorry, man, it's not working out. You're out. And he started to cry. he begged for it to be different. And we said, no, decision has been made. Please leave. He wouldn't leave. And then there was a huge standoff between him and the production designer was a good friend of his. And the art department was a good friend. And it was like another scene out of a movie. There was like all this, all
It's
of
like
us
Reservoir
standing-
Dogs. You guys are all
Kind
pointing
of,
your guns
yes.
at each other.
Totally. And we were standing at the gate that opens up into the warehouse. It's the opening scene.
Yeah.
So all the groove folks are on this side, and the actor that I just fired is in the cab, and he's called his friends, the art department, into the cab for a confab.
Oh.
And it's silence. We're waiting, and if the cab drives away, our entire art department drives away, right? And it was long pause, and then the doors open. The art department gets out, walks back in, and the cab drives away with just the actor.
Wow.
That's the end. Oh my God, man! It was, but for the aspiring filmmakers out there, man, there's nothing. You can't really go wrong if you're truly following your gut, because it was it was a crazy idea to do that, but it was absolutely essential. It really was.
That's amazing that you a first-time filmmaker
Yes.
on your first day of shooting
Totally.
would have that sense to do that and then follow through.
Yeah, it's just because I had put too much into it. I couldn't give this thing that I'd struggled so hard to make over to this person that was not respecting the process. And you know me, I'm not like a jerk. So
Right.
it had to be pretty bad.
I know you're a very nice, polite,
Totally.
professional guy. Wow.
Totally.
With such a small budget, how did you afford these DJs and all of this music that you
Yes.
use in the movie? I mean, I would think $200,000 would barely afford like locations and actors, let alone all this great music.
You know what, Dave? Turns out you're right. It's exactly what we found out. Yeah, talk about the naivete. I wrote a movie that has 42 tracks of music in it.
Right.
Music literally from frame one to the end of the last frame.
Right.
Has music. And
Right. You essentially wrote Dazed and Confused
yes,
for the rave generation.
100%. And that
but
was the
with
inspiration.
like a
right?
fraction of the budget.
Yes, that's exact. I was inspired by the kind of naturalistic, real-time evolution of that movie and how the role music played in the structure of the movie. Very much inspired by that, and that's what I wanted to do with structuring the night through the genre of music, the BPM. I actually have a grid that shows like the progression of the BPMs, the progression of the drug effects. Like we graphed it all out because we had to shoot it all out of order and stuff. But yeah, music was such a huge part of it. And just to go back briefly to the budget, we decided to go forward with about $120,000 in the bank. So that's what we got into production. We thought, let's just get into production. We could get it cut and then hopefully raise the rest to pay for post and finishing and then ideally the licensing. We did sign all of our actors and musicians to a release, but that release was like a one-page thing we found on the burgeoning internet. So it turned out was not bulletproof.
Uh-huh.
We won't go too far into the future, but to answer your question, once we sold the movie at Sundance to Sony, essentially all of our contracts were void. They had, as our lawyer who we hired to sell the movie said, there's holes the size of Mack trucks in every single one of your legal documents.
Wow.
Yeah. So that we can get to that part, but the plur and the love kind of went out a little bit after
Yeah,
we had to go back. But it was all about getting local people. And I will say this, everybody who has tracks in the movie were really excited about being in the movie. They believed in what we were trying to do. They saw that we really wanted to represent what they loved accurately in the movie. So I have to say there was so much of the spirit of making this movie was the spirit of the rave scene. And no one embodied that more than John Digweed, who took Heaven Sent, which is the final track of that movie, which is really critical to the climactic visual moment of the film. It's one and the same, in fact, right? It's just, it could not exist. And in fact, I had that song and I rewrote and shot blocked to that song. And he gave it to us for $500 flat.
Amazing.
Yeah. So God love John Digweed.
All right. I want to get into the film a little bit. I'm sure we could talk all about production and all that stuff, but there's so much great stuff in the film to discuss.
Yeah.
And speaking of opening credits, the opening credits for this movie are amazing.
Thanks, man.
The thing that I noticed right away is like okay, we have Groove, which is this, it got released in 2000,
Yeah.
right? 2000 is kind of on the cusp of like, we're entering into the digital age,
Yeah.
but there's still a lot of elements of physical media and
Very much.
analog
Yep.
still in existence. And all of that is encapsulated in your
Yes.
opening credits. There's
Yes.
computers and the internet, but there's also cassette tapes and vinyl records and fax machines and pagers and Palm Pilots, all
Oh,
of
pilots.
these.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you called that out. That was
Yeah.
critical. Yes. That opening credit sequence is entirely shot exactly as I wrote it, shot for shot. Like I scripted that thing out like to a T, and we shot it. We put it on the schedule. And one of the key things is what I loved about the process of going to a rave is how the word got out, word of mouth, right? Like, internet definitely played a role, but it was still, that was only a component of the word of mouth, like sending out an email, but a lot of it was printing stuff out or just running into people at the record store and then telling you. So I wanted to show how like they decided to start this party, and then you get to watch the word of mouth through tech and lo-fi means kind of go through.
Even this like lo-fi Uber pool thing of Layla saying like, "Hey, I need a ride to
Yes.
the rave."
Exactly. No, that was happening all the time. That was happening all the time. Like people would just email strangers and say, "Hey, are you going to this rave? This is where I live. Will you pick me up?" And they said, "Sure." And then the car would just show up, and you'd meet these strangers, you'd hop in.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there was that, and then the Palm Pilot thing. I'm so glad that's in there. It makes me laugh every time where you see the email on a Palm Pilot, and they're beaming it on the infrared teacher.
Right. Yeah, it's great. And you got your teacher who gets the pager.
Yes. Yeah,
message.
if you notice, he that's the character of Cliff, played by Ari Gold, who was and still is a great independent filmmaker. But he had a fantastic short the prior year that really put him on the map called Culture. I highly recommend looking up this short. It's like 60 seconds long, but it encapsulates in this amazingly satirical one shot over a white psych American culture through action and violence. And that's all I'll say. But it was a huge hit at Sundance, and that's why we cast him. We met him at Sundance in '99 and said he'd make a great drug dealer. But anyway, that scene is he's teaching chemistry at school, and he gets a page because he is the source of the good quality drugs as a chem TA.
Well, what's great about the movie is that it's not just an inside baseball look at raves. You have these outsider characters like Hamish's character, like Cliff's friend. And I love that scene early on where he's describing how ecstasy affects the body in a very scientific way. And the guy's just like, I just want to get fucked up. But you have all these little moments where you're bringing us into the world along with the people who are part of the world.
That was intentional for sure. And I designed David to be the gate into the world, because there was a lot of details that people on the outside probably wouldn't get unless there was some context. Yeah. And then, Cliff could certainly provide that too. And I found a lot of humor between like Cliff's scientific justification of drugs and stuff and his like negative guy who's just like, he's like a rave. Well, this seems stupid, you know? So that was a perfect foil to get information out comedically, you know, like where he's like, eat this orange. And this is all based on stuff that people would say at raves, like that vitamin C would catalyze the effect of ecstasy, oranges, and so all of it came out of my research. But I just I just found ways to put it in people's characters' interactions. Yeah.
I also was really struck, especially in those early scenes, by the inclusion of a gay couple.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure that was true to life in San Francisco, but for the late 90s, early 2000s, that kind of thing was very rare in movies.
I think the whole spirit of the movie was, I just tried to put everybody in the movie as just people that the movie had zero judgment of. Because one big thing you could say about the rave scene is it's highly eclectic. It's just this incredibly diverse set of people that come from kind of all over, but they're joined by the love of the music and also the love of the space and the vibe. People can say what they will about it. It's by turns, you know, cheesy, idealistic, silly, or some people think, you think it's all positive, but it's dangerous, or whatever. it's all those things. And I just kind of love that soup of people. And I love the idea of you just throw this really kind of wildly diverse group of people in and you don't really comment on them at all. You know,
Yeah.
they're just there and they're all different.
And it also shows. I went to a few raves, not as many as you, but a few raves early on, and it shows how all these people who don't know each other can come together, whether they're high or not,
Yes.
and have this experience together,
Yes.
and then they go back to their lives.
Exactly. And I love that was a big part of the ethos and the spirit of people really believed in that. Like there was a real belief in the meaning of gathering people to dance. And it was one of the challenges of making a film about it because I think a rave is the ultimate you had to be there experience.
Absolutely.
You know,
Right.
I mean, and so how to translate that into a film and the tone of the film was so much on my mind. And it is kind of a challenge. It's a very interior experience. It's a very nonverbal experience. It's a very temporary experience. Yeah, so that was a big challenge. But music and sound design and these details, the production design, the authenticity, I felt like those were all the kind of like pieces of the puzzle that would help me get at this vibe. Because I think that's ultimately, if the movie is successful, you end the movie and you feel this thing that is so specific to going to one of those raves that just was epic and you will tell the story about. It's kind of just this tone, this feeling.
Yeah.
Very
And the movie
you know?
somehow actually really captures that.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it in probably 20 years. I probably originally watched it on DVD.
Yeah.
And watching it again yesterday, I was like, wow, I'm like really into this. Like I want to I want to go to a rave.
that.
Like I want to experience that feeling
Yes.
again that the movie really taps into. And yes, it's kind of like scrappy and there are some signs of like first time filmmaker,
100%.
right? But overall, like with the music and the way that you capture the feeling and the experience of these people, like that can't be denied. That's just
That's cool, man. I appreciate that, and I guess that's I think a lesson in just staying true to the thing you love or you're trying to do, even with your lack of craft or, you know, like you said, like first time filmmaker stuff or performances or the people we cast, you know, something still comes through because of our intention. And I think that's
Absolutely.
a great lesson to be remembered, and that the craft can always grow around that. But ultimately, you know, sticking true to like, no, I'm trying to capture this thing, this vibe, can still be there even if you're green. But I can think some of I think the New Yorker gave us a great review, and that was shocking to me. I was like, I've got that cut out, and they even did an original illustration of Groove in the New Yorker, and it said it called it the charmingly amateur performances were a piece of the charm of the movie, and I just thought there's something to that. It was like a performance art piece of like the rave scene put on, like made a movie about themselves, and like the vibe of that came out somehow. It's actually part of the piece, I think. Yeah.
Well, and to go back to these analog elements, the movie was shot on film.
Yes. Super 16.
It's not digital, so
No.
it doesn't feel flat and thin. It really feels like a film.
Yeah. A lot of grain, a lot of texture. It was Super 16 blown up to 35. Yeah. And that was a choice too. Now at the time there weren't awesome digital cameras. Like what was going on at that time was people shooting on mini DV, and that was digital, right? There wasn't like, if you could afford a cinema camera with like a tent and 20 people and a cable this thick, you could shoot HD. But so we wanted it to be cinematic. I think that talking to Matt Irving, our DP, who had shot many independent films at the time that I thought were beautiful, he was very committed to cinema and film. And we talked about, that's one of the pieces of the aesthetic puzzle we had to try to express the feeling, right? Lens choice, if you know, it's very subtle, but part of our graph was handheld 25 mil before the rave. Then we went to a 35, and it was handheld but a little floaty. then as the music got more and more intense in the dance floor, we got onto dolly and longer lens. And then if you progress all the way to the end, you can see we're at, I think we shot 120 frames slow-mo, all the suspended, like we were on 120 mil lens. It was just pieces of people. Everything was bokeh, all crushed together into one, that was the story, right? Like this mass of people just merge into one thing, right? In that kind of climactic moment. So he was all about how do we use cinema and lens choice and camera move to like try to be part of that tone.
There's so much dancing in the film. So many shots and scenes of dancing. Did you plan that out like Scorsese Raging Bull style, where like every dance has like a different tone, or did you just shoot people dancing for like 3 hours and then just like cut it all together?
Yeah, well, we knew the BPM was going to change. We knew we had a representative song for each DJ, even though we didn't have the final tracks on during shooting. We had different lighting setups for each DJ. We had different visuals for each DJ. So that was another part of the visual progression, which is true of a real rave. You know, I think the lighting and video guys were straight out of that scene, and we talked about like what would be the color progression and the lighting. And then, of course, the dancing would be different just based on the kind of music, the genre of music. But then the practical nature of it was, you know, we were shooting during the day, so we tented this whole thing. We shot it day for night, except for the exteriors. And we had to have at least, you know, for the big scenes, we had to have over 100 people. That's another like naive thing. We're like, oh, I wrote a movie that takes place in one location, so that's smart. But it has 42 tracks of music and needs hundreds of people.
Right.
So
right.
We did calculate the shots. So there's actually I posted the behind the scenes from the original DVD on our anniversary Instagram. At Groove Movie. And you can see how we did it, where we would shoot the wide shots where the most people showed up. They were all volunteers. We gave them pizza. And then as they had to go to work or they got exhausted, we would get the close-ups. And then by, you know, the last shot on the dance floor of the close-up of Layla has got like 3 people just kind of moving behind them.
You wouldn't know.
That was my editing background.
Yeah.
They probably appreciate that. Just knowing like, I'm going to cut to this wide, then the dialogue starts, we're going to be in tighter, and then it ends on a close, and then we just bring our extras down. Yeah. But you can see that in the behind the scenes. It's totally...
Yeah, I mean, I could feel a little bit of like, you know, independent movie lack of background actors in some of the wide shots at times.
Yes.
But it was also like, okay, well, this is just the size of the rave that this is.
Yes,
you know, it's
right.
It's just that size. And there's a great kind of like, I don't know if you're on a dolly or a crane or something, kind of going over the crowd as they're dancing, like from behind. Yes. It might be during Digweed's set, or it might be just before.
It was just before. That was the climactic aesthetic was, you know, as I said, handheld to dolly to longer lens, and then rising up. And we got a half day, we could afford a half day with a jib. And we're like, okay, this is where we're going to hose down, like dancing off of the jib. Yeah, so that was that.
Yeah, it's great. It gives it adds to the cinematic quality and takes it away from like, we're low budget, so we have to shoot from the ground. Yeah.
Thanks for noticing all these details. We definitely try to, we planned out a ton of details like this, you know, and they're usually subconscious, that kind of progression stuff, but
was there anything production wise, you know, other than your first day that didn't go according to plan?
I have one awesome story that I think also somehow captures the literal magic of the rave scene. So we're making a movie about a break-in rave where you find a location, an abandoned location, and you decide to, without a permit, throw a rave in it. It also became our production office. We're like, this is great. It's like a little backlot. We'll shoot downstairs. We have the offices upstairs, wardrobe, and all this can be upstairs. We have these rooms. It was super trashed, but it was like we're there as like a production. So to save money, we didn't have insurance or a security guard until the day of production. We had already moved everything in, and it was the night before we were going to get started. Well, that night, our location was literally broken into, and all of our costumes were stolen. Place was ransacked, and Danielle and I went in, and I have never done this. I like fell to my knees. Like that's such like a movie moment, but like I literally did. I just felt like the air got knocked out of me. I couldn't fucking believe it. We got broke in the day before, and we did not have insurance, and we didn't have the security guard because we needed to save money, right?
Right.
So this is going to be hard to believe, but this is what happened.
Okay.
I'm telling you the absolute truth. I called the actors because we were going to do some rehearsal, and we started to tell the actors, look, we don't know what's going to happen because we were broken in and we were robbed. So sit tight, and we'll let you know what's next. We don't know what we're going to do. So we're letting people know that, and we call Hamish, Denny Kirkwood, Lola Glaudini, and I think it was Rachel True. They were all out on Haight Street having breakfast before coming. And we called them, and we told them the story, and they're like, that's weird. We just passed these people on Haight Street selling clothes on the street. And let's go back there. And so they went back there, and they were selling some of our costumes on Haight Street, and our actors were being sold back their costumes. I can't, even just saying it seems absolutely insane, but this is what happened. And so we called the cops. We went down there, and the people selling the clothes, we got the clothes back from them. And then we went down the street to all the used clothing stores, and they had already sold out some of our stuff into the used clothing stores for cash. And we got probably 80% of it back.
Wow.
And yeah.
That's amazing.
And then we went on to shoot our day one. Day one, fired our lead actor. Day two, earthquake blew out the windows.
Oh my God.
It was wild.
Wow.
Wild shit, man. San Francisco. I remember we're all in there, and like the thing starts to shake, and like it's the second floor with all these like warehouse glass, and it's like
wow.
It's wild.
That is a lot to deal with.
Dude, that's day 1, 2, and 3. Stuff stolen, fired the lead actor, earthquake. So
amazing.
You can get through anything, man.
Yeah, it's all downhill from there.
All you filmmakers out there, just keep going.
Yeah. So there's one shot that I wanted to ask you about, and it is the, I guess you could call it, iconic shot from this movie. It became the poster, and it's this shot of this guy. I forget his name. It's
Dimitri. The actor's name Dimitri. His DJ name was Dimitri from the Lower Haight.
Okay. Yeah. So there's Dimitri, who plays this kind of small role in the film, but he's there in one shot in the opening credit sequence in his orange vest on a subway holding a huge disco ball.
Yes.
And it just became like the representative image of the movie. And it's on the poster, it's on the DVD. It's like it is it. But it's not tied to any scene.
Right.
In the movie, and he's on a moving subway car.
Yes.
So how did this shot happen?
Yeah. I had that shot in the first draft in 1996 as a 2-line description. And it wasn't an image that I'd seen, but it just felt like a perfect distillation of putting on a show. Like, you got to go pick up the disco ball and transport it to the location. I just thought it was a funny image. And he plays the character of Guy, who is Ernie, the promoter's right-hand man, basically. And we just stole it. We literally got on the Muni in the afternoon and rode a few stops and shot a couple different angles and got a couple different densities of people that were around him. And if we felt like there was security, sometimes there was security and we just run off or whatever. But it was a classic independent film, steal it,
Right.
Just be on set. And then we felt like that shot was so iconic that we went to Sundance. We made our own poster and we pulled that 16 millimeter still and blew it up. It was very grainy, but it made like a fun kind of indie vibe poster for Sundance. But when Sony bought us, they made a bunch of posters we did not like, and we said we got to go back to this image. So we went back and stole the shot again, but this time on a Hasselblad, like 4-inch negative.
Oh.
But we went back and got him back in costume and got the same disco ball, and then shot around the city and recreated that shot for the poster, and that's how the poster was born. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
It's so great. It's so great. And also just like not even the disco ball, but like his whole look, like his ball cap, the orange vest was such a great choice. And
it's all
just
him.
Yeah, just him
like
even as a character, as a small character.
Kei Hashinaguchi had some did a lot of research and tied to that kind of moment in time in fashion, especially in the Bay Area, but also drew a lot from looking at people's own wardrobe. So pulling stuff from their own closets and seeing what they would wear. Like it was a big hybrid kind of combo between design and people that he was a DJ in the rave scene. So what has he got in his closet? Yeah.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, it's kind of an iconic look. And there was a post that someone tagged the Groove Movie Instagram on that showed he was one of the famous puffer vests. And it has Marty McFly, Groove, and I can't remember one other one. And it's like funny. A little triplet, a little triptych.
Did you have to work with any of the actors to have them convincingly play being on drugs, or was everybody pretty dialed into
That's a very interesting question. Some came prepared from their own experiences. It's a little tricky to talk about. It was not a line item in the budget, if that's what you're asking. Is it?
No, I just mean like in kind of working with the actors, did you have to like explain to certain actors like this is what it's like, this is what you're feeling, this is how it happens to your body?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I would say the non-actors were coming from the rave scene, so they understood whether they thought of it as, because a lot of people at the time, it's really important to say, like, not everybody goes and takes E and that's why they had a great time. Some people get high on the music. They literally go and dance themselves into a trance and just feel like an altered state through the music and the vibe. And if someone else is on drugs, you get like the contact high, whatever. So a lot of the non-actors that we cast just knew the vibe, like understood this sort of happiness and eye contact and that, just a lot of the behavior that happens when the thing is cooking, So that was kind of taken care of with that piece. When we had people like Hamish, who's like a real like actor that I just feel is so attuned to kind of understanding that. We did talk a lot about that. And that's something he could really use because he was just such a great actor. We talked a lot about how it puts you in a childlike state. I remember specifically that scene when we're rotating around the chill room and they're all in that puppy pile.
Yes.
And he gets up and he invites everybody to breakfast and gives out his dress.
Yes.
And that was very much like the earnest, like pure honesty, childlike quality. Like he nailed that in that moment, I feel, but that came out of our discussion of some of the states it puts you in. Yeah.
And even Lola's like, oh, isn't that cute? Like,
yeah, isn't that cute? Don't give your real address, please. Falls back down. But that came out of my notebook. That happened. That was almost verbatim out of something that happened in a chill room that I just like, this is going in the movie.
That's great. Well, it's great that you said that a lot of them were non-actors, because especially that couple, the guy who writes love on the arm, and his girlfriend with the red wig.
They were the Candy Ravers.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And Candy Ravers, for those that don't know, are kind of a subset of ravers, especially in the 90s, that would come decked out in wigs and stickers and puffy, wild, like cartoon pants. And it's really just an incredible costume.
Very bright colors.
Very bright colors, and they really believe and drive in kind of like the plural, the plur, peace, love, unity, respect. It's just like a whole vibe, and so the Candy Kids was somebody we really wanted to represent. And the two characters you're talking about, I believe they were in college at Berkeley, and in the opening credit sequence, they're packing their Candy Kid bag, and we just went to their dorm. And they already had stuff on the wall, and we're like, great, this is a raver's dorm room. So
yeah. You can always tell the difference between an actor pretending to be a raver or let's just say raver, whatever the thing is. You can
Right.
always tell the difference between an actor pretending to be something versus someone who really knows and is that thing.
Yeah.
And they always seem to me like from the moment they pick Layla up in the car.
Yes, that's right.
And she's like, "Do you guys like jungle?" They just felt like authentic. It felt very authentic.
Yeah. No, totally. And that's the hope of casting real people. Try to get them in the zone of just being themselves. And sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. And that's usually when you say, oh, that's the amateur actor, where they're trying to be something. You know, the best is if you just cast the right person and you make them comfortable to just be how they are. Yeah. And luckily we got some of that. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I wanted to call out Kei Hashinaguchi, who was our costume designer, who was so amazing at sourcing the Candy Kids, and we actually built a whole shot around it where the Candy Kids get into this like dilapidated forklift. It's just a cutaway, but that whole thing was designed by Kay and how they all looked, and it was spot on, and it's such a great capturing of a late 90s moment.
And even going back to what I said earlier about the inclusion of the gay couple, you also have this, we'll call them hetero couple. Mm-hmm. And I forget the characters' names, but she walks in on him kissing another man.
Yeah, Harmony and Colin are in this relationship, and he proposes to her at this rave. Again, this came out of characters that I knew. There were people that were kind of lost and probably taking too many drugs, and it just got weird, and boundaries would get crossed. Again, didn't want to really like make a judgment of it or too big a story out of it, but it was absolutely true. I'd seen it numerous times. People thinking the sense of love and community, they clearly needed that so desperately that they kind of convinced themselves of these dysfunctional relationships. I do think it's worth mentioning, talking about the cop.
Oh yeah, so Nick Offerman
plays
the cop.
The story of how Nick Offerman became the cop that busted the rave. So we always had this cop that was going to bust the rave. That was always the drama of throwing a renegade party, is you could get busted, and that was part of the fun, to be honest. Like, it was very exciting to think you might get busted by the cops. So that was a tension that could be laid over the film. 1999, we were at Sundance with our Groove postcard, and Danielle had produced a movie. It starred a very young Nick Offerman. And so, as you do when you go to Sundance and you have no money, you crash on the floor of the one condo of the filmmakers that have films at the festival. And she and I got like a little area in the condo. And I woke up to the smell of bacon and eggs, and I look over, and it's Nick Offerman in a full beard and a muumuu cooking breakfast. And that's how we met Nick Offerman. And then, of course, Danielle knew him because she cast him in this role. And we said, will you play the cop that busts the rave? And he said, absolutely. And all of his pre-Parks and Rec dry wit authority was so perfect for that cop.
Totally.
It just was like a slam dunk.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so he went on to be the cop in my second film as well.
Oh, really?
And he joked to say, I'm happy to be a cop in any of your movies as long as I get to pick the name and the facial hair.
Oh, great.
So I got to write more cop roles.
Yeah. So in addition to writing, directing, producing this movie, you also edited the movie.
Yes.
I read in an article that you edited the film in 2.5 weeks. Is that true?
Yes, it
For Sundance?
is. It was under 3 weeks. It was definitely under three weeks because we shot late. I feel like we shot mid-September to mid-October, and like the first week of November, the last week of October was going to be the deadline to submit. And
to Sundance?
To Sundance. And we actually said, well, I guess maybe we'll miss the deadline. But after we shot, we're like, that's insane. We can't not submit to Sundance. So I did the editing at Motion, which at the time was CMP West there at Pico and Sepulveda. And Craig Murray, longtime friend, benefactor, and invested in my film, invested post. So I cut there, and I basically edited 30 hours, slept 5, 30 hours, 5. So like I was on my own, like,
yeah.
I was like, it's in edit bay, I didn't see light. People would just bring me food like I was in a little prison cell.
Yeah.
But I cut the movie to like, I think the original cut was like 97 minutes long, and we submitted cold on a VHS tape. Speaking of VHS revolution,
Yep.
we submitted to
Wow.
Sundance on VHS
Amazing.
and got in.
Yeah. And at the time that you submitted, did you have rough tracks, rough like music in there? And
We did. We had music in the whole thing.
yeah.
Some of which are music supervisors, who, by the way, this whole time I should be naming the hundreds of people that made this movie what it is. But music, Wade Randolph Hampton, who goes by DJ Wish FM, his wife Stephanie Smiley of Domestic Records, they were the music supervisors. They had the connections. They had the taste. So much of, I would describe the tone, and we'd look at the movie and we'd spot it, but they were able to bring forth the music because the music was the score too. It not only had to be authentic and progress, but it had to capture the vibe, the kind of
The emotion.
Yeah, the emotion or the counterpoint of the scene. And they were able to find all this music that got all of those in the Venn diagram. And so they were fantastic. So they had gotten a lot of stuff in the movie that was going to be clearable, even if we didn't have the legal documents. But then some of the stuff was just aspirational until we sold the movie and we had to swap some tracks. Yeah. The submitting on VHS and getting in, like we submitted it and it was a Hail Mary. We had no connections. It was literally deadline. I slipped it through a mail slot on a VHS tape.
Right. And you're like, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And then we got the call, and I can't tell you how exciting that moment was. Just the sheer release after 7 years of working on something that it was going to get in to Sundance. But, very quickly after, we're like, okay, it's November, and all we have is a rough cut VHS. And so now we have to do all this other stuff. And remember, we shot for 120 in the bank. My parents put a second mortgage on their house to pay payroll to the end of our shoot, and then we had no other money. So we had to raise the money to finish the film, but going to an investor saying, we're going to play in Sundance on January, and we need X amount of money, like it took us 3 years to raise 80% or 40%, and then it took us like a month to raise the rest.
Right.
So we had that event, but
because you have this calling card of like, we're playing in Sundance.
You can see the movie. It's going to play at Sundance, and we're mixing at Skywalker Ranch, and that there's no better way to get an investor to open their pocketbook than to come over to Skywalker Ranch and see us mixing the 5.1 subwoofer in the theater Star Wars was mixed in. Like,
right.
It was awesome. And
how did you get to go to Skywalker Ranch?
So Skywalker Ranch connection was Andrea Gard, if you remember, mutual friend who introduced me to Danielle Renfrew Behrens, who was my partner in crime and indispensable in making this a reality. Like, we went through the war together. We went back to Andrea because she was a raver. She's in the movie as an extra, and she was a sound designer at Skywalker Ranch. She was doing Foley for movies. She was doing sound editing, dialogue editing. And at the time, they were known obviously in the Bay Area filmmaking scene, but they hadn't really opened up beyond like the big studio movies and George Lucas movies. But around that time, they were looking to do that. So we were one of the earlier movies that was an independent film that they were like, hey, we have a slot in the schedule, and we have some mixers available and some sound designers, and Andrea was the connection. So we got to sound design and mix at Skywalker, and it was just this bucket list dream to drive up there and mix this rave movie in 5.1 on these massive stages. It was, I can't tell you, man, it was just a highlight. And working the subwoofer, that was a lot of
I can imagine like the mixers like mixing, and then they're like slowly bobbing their heads, and then
totally.
Like,
Yes,
move
totally.
in, and then they're like dancing in their
Totally.
chairs.
We got some very non-raver Skywalker employees into the music for sure. Yeah. And when we would check reels, like we would check reels and we put it up, and anyone can come in and listen to where we were on the mix of one of the reels, and we just crank it, and it was so fun.
So then, what was it like seeing it with an audience?
Right. So then that takes us to Sundance. The festival was asking all the filmmakers, would you want to have a special screening as a thank you to all the volunteers at Sundance? And a lot of people were saying no strategically because they wanted the word not to get out, or they wanted to have a special premiere, or the distributors were going to have to. But we thought we're not known. We're like, of course, let's put it in front of as many people as we want. Well, it turns out all the volunteers are college aged, right? It went over like gangbusters, right? The cast was there chucking t-shirts and disco balls with groovemovie.com into the crowd. We had these great hats, we had t-shirts, we had the disco balls. And then where are the volunteers for the rest of the festival? They're on the buses, they're taking the tickets. And anybody asking, what movie should I see? They were saying, you should see this movie Groove, this hat
Wow.
I'm wearing. Like,
Wow.
so it was such a genius move, and I credit Danielle for that move, but it was such a great promotional moment for a movie that was not on anybody's radar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so then it got picked up by Sony Pictures Classic.
Yeah. So then the first official screening, which has bummed me out a little bit, was actually every movie screened in Salt Lake as part of the deal. Like, Park City is the main, but then you do one screening out in Salt Lake. So our premiere was out in Salt Lake. But the projector did not work. Super stressful. So I had to get up in front of the crowd and like stall, and so they fixed it, and they had to like rewind the film. I can't remember exactly what happened, but it was probably delayed by 15 minutes. Super stressful.
Yes.
Anyway, the movie plays, and it was wild to see because we got the Salt Lake City and Utah rave crowd to come out. And there were people dancing in the aisles, and it was just like totally the right vibe, and people, it was the right people to see this movie. And the genius of it was like a lot of young people who were ravers were in the movie, but so were distributors. And so the lights come up, and I didn't really know, I hadn't met the distributors, but Tom Bernard, who is one of the co-presidents with Michael Barker of Sony Classics, was sitting a few seats down from me. And the lights come up, and he leaned over to me and said, hi, I'm Tom Bernard. I'm going to buy your movie.
Wow.
That's so wild, man.
Yeah, so wild.
It's living the Sundance dream.
Yeah.
Lightning in a bottle. Truly.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And so what was the release of the film like?
Yeah. So they bought it for worldwide rights in theatrical, and then Columbia TriStar was the home video DVD release. And so it came out the first week of June, I believe. Talk about right place, right time. The cover of Time magazine that same week was What Ecstasy Does to Your Brain. And I had a quote in the opening paragraph. And we just realized we were riding like a zeitgeist wave because, and it was even in our business plan, like around that time, Madonna's album was inflected with electronic music. There was another movie called Human Traffic, which was about the British rave scene. And then there was a documentary that same year called Better Living Through Circuitry. So we were, 3 movies meant there was a pop culture movement. And that really drove so much of the press and the awareness of the film was a lot of people did think pieces on raves. And it was kind of breaking into the popular consciousness, you know. And I think it's notable to say that we were talking about financing. Over 2/3 of our investors were under 30.com paper millionaires who were also ravers, it turns out, and DJs. So the .com world was populated by young people with money who went to raves. And that's, the money we did raise prior to getting into Sundance came largely from that source.
At the very end of the film, you have a dedication to 3 people. Who are or were those people?
Yeah, no one's ever asked me that question. Ernie Bruni was a father figure and caretaker of Danielle, who she loved very much, who had passed. And then Julia Weber was my grandmother, who died around that time. And then, very sadly, Diane Johnson was a friend of mine who had committed suicide. And I was very moved by that. Obviously, it was devastating, but she was such a source of positivity, and yet she hid this darkness in her in a way that no one saw. And I think the movie was so much about being in touch with joy and what it feels to be alive. I just really wanted to dedicate the movie and that spirit of the movie to her. Also because I had struggled heavily with depression, and it turned out she did too, and she didn't make it. So that's where that came from. But it's funny. I don't mean to like turn this into too much of a downer, but I've thought a lot about my 20s were marked by struggle with very serious depression. And here I was making a movie about the joy of being alive. And I think, you know, I think that's what drove me somehow to make it. Was this my own desire to kind of punch through something that was making me feel isolated. But anyway, that's the story of the names.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you say that the movie is about discovering joy and being alive, and that's very evident in the final shot of Hamish driving. He looks totally different than he did at the beginning of the film. His shirt is open, his hair is blowing in the wind, and he just looks free in a way. Yeah.
That's it, Dave. If there was one simple word, I would say free. And we actually talked about it, and this is the beauty of Hamish Linklater. I mean, he went on to the career he did because he's just an incredible actor. It was me tucked in that back seat with a little video monitor and the cameras in the front, and we just talked about, you know, I gave him directions about his heart opening, and you just watch his face bloom, right?
Yes.
I had planned to cut and end on all the cars going through, because that was the other thing straight from the Notebook, is after raves, it was the Random Act of Kindness was a post-rave thing. So if you go over the bridge, you pay $20 and the other cars you get to go through free. And
I was wondering
many
about
ravers that did that. That was just a thing you did in the scene. So I thought, we'll show Dave pay, and then he'll be happy that he paid, and then we'll end, you know, the credits will start to roll while the car's going through. But when I got that shot of David, and you just watch that freedom, he glances to the rear view, little smile, and you just feel that openness. Yeah. And then I just put like a cymbal swell and pushed the music, and we just sliced to black, and it just felt, wow, that was the whole movie.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally perfect. Yeah.
And I will say, talking about other generations finding the movie, there's a number of posts that say, "Whoa, Hamish Linklater in like an unbuttoned shirt, not too bad." Like people are really into him in that movie. Amazing. Especially because we actually did. It's a simple gag, but like his shirt becomes more and more unbuttoned.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a very simple visual.
Totally. Freedom track arc. Yes.
Just to backtrack a little bit, you and I met when I started working at Motion in 2010.
Yes. Motion being entertainment marketing agency. Yep.
Yes.
Trailers.
Yes. And doing trailers and TV spots. And at that point, I had really only been editing in the trailer world for like 5 years. So I was still learning a lot. And when I first started, you were actually working at CMP in Burbank.
Yes.
But you came over, I remember you came over to Motion. I think you were working on Harold and Kumar or maybe it was Project X or something like that.
No, that was later. That was later. Yeah, because
Okay.
Project X was more 2010, 2009. I was cutting, and then I became a creative director. But that was after Groove and after November film. So we had met prior to that, right? Because were you at Motion in like late 90s, early 2000s?
No.
You were not. Okay.
No, I was just a kid trying to figure life out at that time.
Totally.
My connection to you and Motion and Groove is represented in this one specific particular thing, which is that for the 10 years that I was at Motion, I was in the same edit bay. And on the wall right outside my bay was the poster for Groove. And there was one point, like maybe 7 years on, where somebody had this good idea to like put up new posters on the walls, and they took the Groove poster down, and I was like, hell no. Like, that is not happening.
That's awesome.
That is not happening. We're putting that back right now. You can put other stuff up anywhere else.
I love it.
But having Groove outside my bay, and then November, where it was around the corner,
right?
Those have to stay.
That's awesome.
they put it back up. Yeah,
that's super nice. Yeah, that's really cool. And if I remember right, it's even the original Sundance poster. which is just the smaller guy, the smaller image of him with the disco ball, and then a bunch of like blurred emails around. That we made. That was a DIY poster that was from Sundance only that we made. That was I hope is still there somewhere.
I love it.
Yeah, that's a great story.
It was so wonderful to revisit this movie and to bask in how great it is and go back to that time period of like you said, of independent film and even just life in general, you know?
Totally.
Life isn't quite the same anymore.
No, it's true.
For many different reasons. And
it's been, it is. And maybe that's what, maybe there's something about the movie, especially at this time. There's kind of a friendliness to it and a warmth to it and an idealism that maybe is a nice tonic to some of the chaos that we feel in the world.
Absolutely.
I always feel like the scene maybe represents a refuge. The rave scene at its best represents a refuge from those things.
Well, Greg, thanks.
So fun, man. This was so fun. I'm glad we finally did this.
Me too. Thank you so much for giving your time. This is a great film, and thanks so much for all the work that you put into making it. And thank you so much for talking to me.
I appreciate your enthusiasm for it, and I'm glad it lives on.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Okay, there's my conversation with Greg Harrison about Groove. It was so fun revisiting this film and talking to him all about it. Greg, thanks again for coming on the show. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, please subscribe. Come back to the channel. There's more where this came from. I'm David Schumann, and I'll see you later.